folks, that's Ben Zito back there playing the bass. That's Kate Pillsbury up there playing guitar and singing. Emily Petersmark playing guitar and singing.
And that back there is Mr. Dan Rickovitz playing the drums and singing. very first record.
You're listening to Rip'n Common Sense Radio.
That's right, where we take you well into the midnight hour with our special Art Bell Archives show happening tonight and every night this weekend, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Tune in as we open up the Art Bell Archives and dive into the lost classics of a vocal treasure. We take a look at those stories and we bring them up to date and we share them with you. We ask for your input and your shout-outs, your call-ins, as we go through the most amazing stories ever told. Tune in tonight and every night as we reinvestigate the Art Bell Archives live.
The Art Bell Archive Show.
Rip'n
7
Rabbit
p.m.
Hole
Pacific,
is a
10/9
community-driven
Central.
radio.
Rip'nCommonSense.com.
At times the community comments may reveal prejudices and other beliefs that we or our sponsors do not condone. Views or opinions expressed by the community, callers, or guests, are those of the individual speaking and do not represent the views or opinions of this site. Rip'n Common Sense content is intended for mature audiences only. Enjoy. The captain has turned on the seatbelt sign.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Art Bell Archive live show. I'm your host, AJ, the Rip'n Rabbit. Give yourselves a round of applause for being smart enough to be here. Tonight, we dive down the rabbit hole into phobias. And make no mistake about it, this is a deep one, folks. So many phobias, I'm literally blown away. There's a phobia for just about everything, and we're going to get into it tonight. And perhaps you suffer from one of the phobias we'll be speaking about. Chances are, we're going to give you an opportunity coming up to call in on our open wild card line tonight and share your phobias with us. Now, if you're a Triskaidekaphobiac, you might not want to tune in, because tonight is Friday, December 13th, 2019. Now, when Art would speak about phobias, from time to time, he'd share some of his personal ones. He did so from the point of view of the number one paranormal talk show host ever. So, of course, by design, he intrigued to scare his listeners. And there were certain tastes in certain shows where you couldn't help but be frightened by the content Art would share. Now, interesting to note, on our connection to the Art Bell Archive is the sad passing of Art Bell on Friday, the 13th. In true Art Bell style, I'm certain he wouldn't have wanted it any other way. Now, phobias range, and as I said at the beginning of the show, there is a phobia for just about everything. Triskaidekaphobia, and I apologize in advance tonight for my pronunciation of the words I will be attempting to say, because they're tough. I can't even spell this. Yet this is a phobia, which is the fear of the number 13. Many people fear number 13. In numerology, 13 is considered an evil or insignificant number that follows 12, which is considered as more complete. And I guess if you think about it, there's 12 months in every year. There's 12 signs of the zodiac, and so on. Hence, as 13 exceeds 12 by 1, it's one louder. It is considered a sign of bad luck. if there is such thing as bad luck. Many hotels in Las Vegas and around the world refuse to have a 13th room or even a 13th floor. That's why when you go into those elevators, you'll notice that often it will jump from 12 to 14. Ships are not launched on Friday the 13th since the HMS, a famous 18th century ship, was never heard from again after being launched on Friday the 13th. Now, you may think this is an irrational fear. In fact, most of the phobias we're going to cover tonight may appear to be irrational fears. However, someone, somewhere, right now, hasn't left their bed at all today because today is Friday the 13th. So for many people, these phobias, as silly as they may be, are very real. In fact, you could be one of those people. Hopefully, we can keep it lighthearted tonight and not get too fearful of what our fears may be. You're going to hear about a few you may recognize. You're going to hear about a few that are absolutely foreign and new to you. Most of all, you're going to hear of one that pertains to you.
An estimated 50 million people worldwide suffer from Triskaidekaphobia, an extreme superstition regarding the number 13.
When you find somebody who's paralyzed by the fear of the number 13, for example, the likelihood is that there will be other things around and about him that are significant, particularly when it includes other social phobias. Then it assumes clinical significance, and I get called to do something about it.
That's the doctor telling you he gets calls to do something about it. Carmen got the strange reference for tonight's show, being Friday the 13th. And that's what we're going to look at. Is it extreme superstitions, irrational fears, or just phobias? Or are they the same? It's, the fear of superstition, perhaps, that wild feeling you have deep down inside when you walk under a ladder. How about that? Do you do that? Do you walk yourself underneath a ladder? How about crossing the path of a black cat or stepping on a crack? Will you do that in fear of breaking your mother's back? How about breaking a mirror? Does anybody in chat know how many years of bad luck breaking a mirror gets you? I don't remember off the top of my head. Maybe you're just afraid of spiders. Perhaps you're afraid of heights. Maybe even creepy clowns. And then there's the fear of the number 13. It's a number, just like any other number, right? That's what we're going to look at tonight. Is it truly a fearful number? Or is this superstition just something that we've cooked up in our psyche?
In some countries, the number 13 is considered unlucky, and building owners will sometimes purposely omit the 13th floor.
And the thing with number 13 is that it's always been associated with a lot of negativity and psychological trauma and all these things. And anything that happens to anyone in relation to 13, whether it's a date or a floor or a room or whatever, they will blame, the institution that is responsible for creating that particular association with number 13.
Jerry Njuguna, the business executive with the Ambassador Hotel, arguably Nairobi's oldest hotel, says although the hotel has room number 13, the hotel has had a share of guests who believe that the integer is jinxed.
Once upon a time, we had a guest earlier this year. There were actually 2 needed rooms next to each other, and the only ones we had was a 12 and a 13. We put one in 13, but he kept on losing. So he came back, said that he's losing at the casino, so we needed to change him. When we moved him, I guess the luck changed because he was okay from then on.
Michael Kamau, general manager of Hotel Mariposa in downtown Nairobi, tells me that the hotel does not have room number 13.
This is room number 12. Then we jump the 13, that is our store, and then we come to room number 14. This is because most of the clients come here, and then when you just give them the keys to room number 13, they associate the number 13 with not a good number. It's an unlucky number.
So
do you hold fast to the belief that Friday the 13th or that 13 is an unlucky number? Is that something that you subscribe to? Does it bring bad luck? Go ahead and put a 1 in the chat room if you think that Friday the 13th or the 13th number in general is in fact bad luck.
Rooted is a belief, however, that most airlines around the world don't have gate, flight, or ticket number 13.
If you want to fly to any destination in the world cheaply, book yourself in on Friday the 13th. And you will find very cheap flight. Yes, Friday the 13th, the flights are very cheap all over the world because, again, of that myth about business on that day. Exactly.
So if you're going to put a 2 in the chat room and not subscribe, you just learned some very important travel information here at Rip and Rabbit Hole, and that is book your flight on the 13th, especially Friday the 13th, because it's cheaper.
The airlines make it their business to make business amongst those people who have no fear about the number 13.
The darker symbolism of 13 is evident among Christians. During the Last Supper, there were 13 people around the table, counting Jesus Christ and the 12 apostles. 13 is seen as a foreboding omen, following Christ's fate after the gathering.
So it's going to find its way back through many ancient cultures as we get into the discussion tonight. But I just want to share with you a few. And, the fear of the unlucky number 13 is not just the only phobia that we'll introduce to you tonight. Like I said, you're going to hear some that you know, and of course, you're going to hear some that you've never heard of before. But perhaps there's one on this list that affects you. And I am going to do my very best tonight to try to pronounce these words. And as you've heard in my tongue-tied moments on air live before, I can do that from time to time. So I'm going to start off with the first one, ablutophobia. Ablutophobia. Did you know there's such thing as ablutophobia? And perhaps someone out there listening, live or on demand, has ablutophobia, which is the fear of washing or bathing. Okay? And that one I don't have, so I can check that one off the list. Okay, good. If you're going to have ablutophobia in the world, you have to have automysophobia. Automysophobia, the fear of being dirty. So just in common coincidence of the situation, we are most likely one or the other, right? How about acousticophobia? Yeah, that's a fun one to say. We'll do it again. Acousticophobia, the fear of noise. You know, as we heard in that last clip, tonight negative superstitions have swirled around the number 13 for centuries. And as we've just known, it's not just the numbers, it's the fear of washing or bathing, the fear of being dirty. These are clinically named phobias. So, what could that mean? If Friday the 13th has worried you about rolling streaks in the casino of bad luck, or perhaps stepping into that elevator gives you a little bit of a nervous breakdown if you see that number, 13th floor, or perhaps your phobia could be earthquakes. Well, especially with Friday the 13th, it could suggest that you embrace long-held cultural traditions. Obviously, the cultural impact of the Friday the 13th has been here for ancient years. So, as that result, you could be the type of person that really embraces long-held cultural traditions. That's a fairly decent way to look at it. Also, you might have fears about what you can't control, especially when you're dirty and you have a fear of being dirty and you have no way to clean yourself. How about aerophobia? The fear of drafts, air swallowing, or airborne noxious substances. We heard over 50 million people in this planet fear in some way a phobia. Is mine on this list? Number 5 tonight actually is. It was a terrible fear of mine. I remember it. I have not had this fear in several years, I'll say that. Aerophobia. Now think about it. Aerophobia. Oh, I'm sorry. Aeron nauseaphobia. Aeron nauseaphobia. Now I had this. I remember it. Aeron nauseaphobia. It's the fear of vomiting secondary to air sickness. You know when you're on the airplane and your stomach gets a little queasy and you think you got to grab the barf bag? There's a technical, clinical definition for that, and it's called aeronausophobia. Folks, I told you, there is a fear for everything. Agatophobia, the fear of insanity. Agorizophobia, fear of wild animals. Aurolophobia, fear of cats. Electrophobia, fear of chickens. So, if you embark in the thought that the 13th and the Friday the 13th is a superstitious number for you, if the day paralyzes you with fear, then perhaps deeper issues may be at hand. Flapjack says, I have cathedraphobia. You're going to have to put that into the chat and describe it. I don't know that one's on my list, but I'm only down to, the fear of chickens, which is number 9. Folks, I had 16 pages tonight of fears, of phobias, real phobias, real people suffer. Think about that. Think about it. If you're not already afraid of a chicken, think about what that must feel like to be afraid of a chicken. There's probably a fear for pecking your eyes out It probably has some name I can't spell or say. But if Friday the 13th paralyzes you with fear, deeper issues may be at hand. It's the fear of chairs. Triskaidekaphobia, if I'm saying that right. Wow, Flapjack. That's wild. How do you sit? And does it paralyze you? Obviously, you have a way to deal with it because you have to sit in chairs. You can't not go through life avoiding every option to sit in a chair, or perhaps you can. Maybe you know and developed a security for yourself. We're going to talk about that coming up too. How do we deal with this stuff? Because I could be a lumophobia or a lumophobiac, which you would think would be the fear of aluminum, but it's actually the fear of garlic. Now, if your phobia is vampires, then you best not be an alumophobia or a lumophobiac, because everybody knows garlic will keep the vampires away. It's the fear of chairs on the floor. Okay, I understand. I can relate in some strange way to that. Not through directly a chair, but I always racked my shins on lower coffee tables. And I guess I kind of have a fear of coffee tables, lower coffee tables, because I don't want to hit my shins. And there's probably a name for that. It's not on my list. Your bad luck may come from your thoughts this unlucky day, which we're also going to talk about coming up, where these self-fulfilling, perhaps prophecy, could lead to your bad luck. That could be what's happening on Friday the 13th. In fact, according to the Association for Psychological Science, falling down the stairs or missing a taxi have nothing to do with the unlucky day, Friday the 13th. Instead, your anticipation of the unlucky day may be exactly what's causing unfortunate events to unfold. And some experts believe that merely thinking that something could happen may set circumstances at play and behaviors in motion that cause them to actually take place. So think positive, just not too positive. I'm telling you, this list is long. It was 16 pages, and I've doctored it down to 3 with Nick Rabbit's help. Alaxophobia doba, the fear of onions. And again, if you're just joining us, I apologize for slaughtering these very clinical definitions. And if any of these that I'm reading tonight, anyone listening, whether live or on demand, has any of these, please step forward and let us know. Because I do find a few on this list, unfortunately. When I went through this list, I said, there's no way. There's not going to be anything here that gets me. And I did find a few. How about allodoxophobia, the fear of onions? I'm sorry. Allodoxophobia, the fear of opinions. See, my tongue is so twisted. My dyslexia is kicking in, and I'm all, these words are very hard to say, let alone spell. Amathophobia, the fear of dust. And Annabellephobia. How about that one? Annabellephobia. So Flapjack saying yes, he maintains composure, but tends to avoid them. Is there all chairs that you avoid? Or is it luxury chairs? Is it like those thick recliners? And what exactly is the fear about? What is it that somebody perhaps sat in that chair before and you don't want to sit? Is there a deeper connection perhaps in that thought process, Flapjack? I'm just curious. Amathophobia, the fear of dust. Annabellephobia, you would think it has something to do with a doll in a spooky, scary movie, right? Nope. Amathophobia is the fear. Annabellephobia is the fear of looking up. Could you imagine being so riddled with fear of looking up that you never look up? That you never get to see the sky, the sun, the moon? That's a weird one. Ooh, I like this one. Anglophobia. Anglophobia. I'm an Anglophobiac. I fear England or anything English culture. If you're listening from the other side of the pond, please note we may have a few Anglophobiacs here in our nation. Ooh, angrophobia. You guessed it, the fear of anger or becoming angry. Now that's a logical one. I want to maintain composure just like Flapjack says. So I don't want to get angry. I don't know that I have a fear of getting angry. But I'll tell you, they are all related to that wonderful, magical number 13. Unbelievable. So, did you know some people can actually fear flowers? Yep. Number 17 on the list, anthrophobia. Anthrophobia, the fear of flowers. Boy, could you imagine Mother's Day without flowers? I don't know. Very, very bizarre. Folks, we're coming up to the bottom of the hour. We're going to have open lines in the second half of the program tonight. If you've got a phobia, if you've got something you'd like to share with us, I'll be giving that number out here in just a few moments after the break. And we'll be taking your calls live on air tonight. And N2 Cable saying the Hulk. Fear of the Hulk. I get that one. So we'll be back in just a few moments after this quick break with a lot more phobias to go.
You're listening to Rip and Common Sense Radio.
That's right, where we take you well into the midnight hour with our special Art Bell Archives show happening tonight and every night this weekend, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Tune in as we open up the Art Bell Archives and dive into the lost classics of a vocal treasure. We take a look at those stories and we bring them up to date and we share them with you. We ask for your input and your shout-outs, your call-ins, as we go through the most amazing stories ever told. Tune in tonight and every night as we reinvestigate the Art Bell Archives live.
The Art Bell Archive Show, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, ripandcommonsense.com.
Now, if you joined us last night, we told you about how we're giving away an origami lamp this Christmas season from Heron Elite. Our friends at Heron Elite did this a few weeks ago on a reverse speech episode where we gave away this fantastic lamp. I've included a link to it in the show notes below. It's really cool. You'll want to take a look at it, and here's how you have an opportunity to receive it. Absolutely free of charge, no shipping, everything taken care of for you, just in time for Christmas. We're going to select one lucky placement for this lamp. We're going to announce the winner Sunday night on our Hidden Earth show. And here's how you could be the recipient of this fantastic lamp designed by Robert Lang. Thanks to our friends at Heron Elite. Take a picture of where you would like to see this lamp in your space. Perhaps your office, maybe your bedroom or kitchen, wherever you think this lamp would look good for you. Take a photo of that spot and email it to me here at Ripon Rabbit Hole. That's RIPON, ripponrabbithole@gmail.com. Like I said, we'll be making our selection live on air this Sunday, December 15th. So do that before the end of the broadcast Saturday to qualify. And again, the shows all start at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. So make sure you do that so you have your opportunity and chance to be the lucky beneficiary of this really cool lamp. Join us tomorrow night as we dive into the rabbit hole of mind reading, perhaps some experimental airwaves taking place tomorrow, Saturday, December 14th. Not like the unlucky 13th. For our special episode of Mind Reading, and then we'll be here Sunday night starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, for our Hidden Earth show, a look at lost effigy mounds throughout North America. It's going to be a great weekend. Looking forward to tonight, the rest of the program, as we dive down the rabbit hole of Friday the 13th. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to our YouTube channel or visit us online at ripponrabbithole.com.
So maybe these phobias don't play nicely with you. The phone lines are open. The wild call in line number, the wild card line, 702-500-1658. That's 702-500-1658. If you've got a comment about a phobia, if you've got a comment about the particular number 13 phobia, or if you have a question about a phobia, that telephone number is direct to me here in the studio, and you will be on air. So 702-500-1658. How about anthrophobia? The fear of flowers. That's where we left off. Now that's a wild fear, is it not? How would you celebrate Mother's Day? How about epipnophobia? The fear of bees. Can you name the fear of peanut butter sticking to the roof of your mouth? Believe it or not, there's actually a clinical defined phobia for that. Arachidopterophobia. That one's fun to say. Arachidopterophobia. Fear of peanut butter sticking to the roof of your mouth. You know, when we think about the unlucky number 13, we have to think about its alternative. The perfect number, of course, the perfect number 12. And while Western cultures have historically associated the number 12 with completeness, 13's proximity to the number 12, which is one lauda, and should be a celebrated number if you're a Spinal Tap fan. but its proximity to the number 12 in its glory of completeness makes it look bad, according to scientists and mathematicians in many, many ancient cultures, okay? So it's not just Christianity. 12 was considered to be a perfect number in civilizations as far back as ancient Sumer, based their entire systems of telling time around the number 12. There are 12 hours on a clock. 12 is also the largest number that also has one syllable, in English at least. There are 12 days of Christmas, 12 months and zodiac signs, 12 labors of Hercules, 12 gods of Olympus, and let's not forget the 12 tribes of Israel. So as the number immediately following this perfect one, 13, appears to be flawed and inspires uneasy thought, not just through this world, but through the ancient worlds as well. So why exactly is Friday the 13th unlucky? And the most popular theory about the origin of fear of this particular number is the biblical version. Apparently, there were 13 dinner places at the Last Supper, and the 13th to arrive was Judas, who then betrayed Jesus. And according to that biblical tradition, 13 guests attending the Last Supper, held actually on a Thursday, including Jesus and his 12 apostles. You know, the next day, on Friday, he's crucified. So there is a popular theory that 13 is unlucky from the biblical applications. And of course, through Friday's negative associations are weaker. Some have also suggested that because Christ was crucified on Friday, that's why Friday and 13 kind of go together. But this is also present in a very similar styled story in Norse mythology, too. And the table in their mythology, 13, proves unlucky as well. And according to one of the myths that we found, the primary 12 gods were dining together peacefully until the god of mischief and Loki showed up. As soon as the 13th guest arrived, then the chaos and the carnage ensued. So these superstitions, these legends, these tales have very ancient roots. And, of course, the superstition that the table of 13 dinners spells bad news even made its way into Harry Potter. And, again, you see how it implements itself into all of those societies. Now, how about the fear of stars or celestial space? How about the fear of numbers? Arithmophobia. Or what about this one? Ascophobia. Ascophobia. Say that one 3 times fast. It's the fear of being forgotten or ignored. That's a valid one. How about number 26, a Triskaidekaphobia? That one's fun to say too. A Triskaidekaphobia, the fear of failure. Nobody wants to fail. And those that fear it, it's very real. 702-500-1658. That's 1658. You can call in and share your comments or your phobias with us. Pop culture presents these things and helps the legends to move on. as we can see in, very significant pop culture events. An important milestone in the history of this night, Friday the 13th, legend in particular, occurred in 1907 with the publication of the novel Friday the 13th. And of course, the greatest paranormal radio host in the world, Art Bell, passed away Friday the 13th of April in 2018. And he loved to talk about phobias. In fact, he probably was not a sufferer of astrophobia. And if you were here last night and you made it through our Mission Osiris episode, then you're probably not an astrophobiac either, because it's the fear of stars or celestial space. Now, I'm telling you, there is a phobia and a fear for everything. You name it, it's out there. Again, in pop culture, the book that was written in 1907, the publication of the novel Friday the 13th, was written by Thomas William Lawson. And that was the name of the book, the Friday the 13th. So, of course, pop culture influencing Triskaidekaphobia. And let's not get through this episode without talking about the horror movie Friday the 13th, released in the 1980s, which introduced to the world the slasher, hockey mask wearing killer named Jason. That's probably the best known, perhaps, sample or example of this unlucky number, Friday the 13th. In fact, how many Friday the 13ths were there? Eventually you have to restart to number them, because I know it spawned multiple sequels, incredible sequels. And I think even comic books and video games and endless Halloween costumes. So somebody figured out how to capitalize on phobia, especially on the fear of the number 13. How about ataleophobia, the fear of imperfection? Do you have that perhaps? Or what if your doctor were to ask you, are you suffering perhaps from auroraphobia? You better answer no, because it's the fear of gold. And I really want to know, what are you afraid of if you fear gold? How about autodasomophobia, fear of the one that has a vile odor? Now, after Thanksgiving, when you're sitting around the table with your aunts and uncles and cousins and nephews, you may have temporary autodasomophobia, the fear that one that has vile odor. How about automantopia phobia? Automantopia phobia. Fear of ventriloquist dummies, animatronic creatures, wax structures, anything that falsely represents a sentient being. Okay, I could see that. If you're an astronaut, you're not going to have the fear of gravity, therefore you will not be a barophobiac. Like I said, folks, there's going to be one on this list. It's going to hit you. It's going to just hit you out of nowhere. Perhaps it is Friday the 13th. Of course, we look at its history. We look at its historical significance and impact on this particular day. In more recent times, a number of traumatic events have actually occurred on Friday the 13th, including the German bombing of Buckingham Palace in September 1940. There was a cyclone that killed more than 300,000 people in Bangladesh in November of 1970 on a Friday the 13th. The disappearance of a Chilean Air Force plane in the Andes in October of 1972. How about this one? The death of the rapper Tupac Shakur, September, Friday the 13th, 1996. Or do you remember the crash of the Costa Concordia cruise ship off the coast of Italy, which killed 30 people on Friday the 13th, January 2012? So there is reason to fear your superstitions. I don't know if you have it or not, but if you have a fear of insects, it could be related to a superstition. I like this one. Ethnophobia, the fear of teenagers. I'm sure that anybody over the age of 40 perhaps fears teenagers. That's about the time you start to fear them most. How about equinophobia, the fear of horses? What a terrible thing to be afraid of. Horses are wonderful. They're magical, mystical creatures, and they have nothing but love for you. If they harm you, it's simply because you got in their way. They wouldn't, there's no, well, some horses, I guess. But I don't know much about horses. But they seem nice, and I don't fear them, therefore I'm not an equinophobia. How about geliophobia, with a G, geliophobia, the fear of laughter. How would you like to have that one? Man, oh man, stuff is bad. How about this one is a real one? Glowtopia. The glowtopia, which is the fear. Am I saying that one right? Glowtophobia, the fear of being laughed at. If you have a fear of public speaking, you probably understand what that one is, because you don't want to be laughed at. I understand that fear. I really do. If you're on stage or somebody would perhaps make you feel uncomfortable because they laughed at you, I get it. You can also respond to the questions tonight through chat here in our YouTube channel, or you can send an on-air shout-out at the bottom of rippinrabbithole.com on every page. There's a little red microphone there. You can click that button, record up to a 30-second message on tonight's program. Now, it doesn't have to be live. You can even do this on demand if you're watching several days after this program aired. You can still go to rippinrabbithole.com. We encourage you to interact with the broadcast, and when we do part 2 of phobias, we'll play those shout-outs on air. And here is a shout-out from a listener this evening.
Phobophobia, the fear of phobias themselves.
Let's listen to it one more time. It's hard to pronounce these things.
Phobophobia, the fear of phobias themselves.
The fear of phobias themselves. Phobophobia. Thanks for the shout out. You can do the same on every website, or every bottom of the page on our website, every page. Little red microphone, send an on-air shout out. Phobophobia, the fear of phobias. I like that. How about the fear of chins? Genophobia, Are you a genophobiac? Do you have a fear of chins? Perhaps. Or not to be confused with genophobia, which is the fear of sex. You better not have that one. Or gwenophobia, the fear of knees. Could you imagine actually being afraid of knees? So bizarre. This list goes on and on and on. I'm telling you, 16 pages, shaved down to 3. And so far, we're down to 62. How about the Gephrosophoriaphobia? Gephrosophoriaphobia. Fear of crossing bridges. I'm telling you, I'm fed up with these phobias. What can be done about this? So, factors from both myth and math have combined to make this particular number, the 13th number, somehow more intense than any other number in the world, inspiring fear of the number 13 in millions of people. The uneasiness about the number, dating back to the ancient times, as we've heard, has been compounded over the years to create a very real modern fear. Not just about this particular subject, but this list, which I'm going to put in the show notes tonight. After the show, when it airs on demand, I will put this entire list, which goes all the way down. There's no way we're going to cover all this tonight. It goes to 112. Okay, and that's from 16 pages. Thanks to Nikki Rabbit and I cutting this down. Everything from the fear of gravity to the fear of crossing bridges to the fear of the number 19. Absolutely wild. Now, we came across in our research a young man from Australia by the name of Clive Westwood. Now, he has helped people from all walks of life get over their phobias, from the common fear of spiders or heights to even very less common fears of balloons, clowns, and even the number 13. He's worked with many of these phobias in all different circumstances. And he is what's called an anxiety and depression specialist and a clinical hypnotist. And as somebody who knows a few things about hypnosis, I can tell you, if you suffer from Germanophobia, the fear of Germany or German culture, or perhaps Gerascophobia, the fear of growing old, or glossophobia, the fear of speaking in public, then perhaps hypnosis is the right answer for you. Number one, it's very easy to do. You can reach out and contact Mr. Clive Westwood. We've added a link to his website in the show notes. Carmen's saying, there is a bridge alongside of Hoover Dam that I could not walk across. I had to turn back. I know exactly what bridge you're speaking of, Carmen. And you're absolutely right. These are real fears. And they may seem like they're just irrational phobias to us. But the reality is that there are people out there that really suffer from this. And if you are one of those people that has hadrophobia, hadephobia, the fear of hell, or perhaps hagiophobia, the fear of saints or holy things, either way, you're going to fall into perhaps one of those categories. which is wild to think that there are people that suffer from the fear of forests or the fear of sleep or of being hypnotized themselves. Hypnophobia is a real thing. So if you suffer from hypnophobia and you have a fear of hypnosis, then disregard my suggestion and this short clip from Clive Westwood, clinical hypnotist. One possible suggestion for helping to relieve your phobias.
The biggest thing is it's really just relaxing so much that your mind just clears.
When someone gets hypnotized and you put in the suggestions in their subconscious mind, it's teaching their subconscious.
Feeling sad, overwhelmed, or maybe even angry. Right now, as many as 1 million Australians are struggling with depression, while 1 in 4 of us will experience crippling anxiety at some point in our lives.
I can't be crying in front of my friends, you know.
That's it.
18-year-old Manuel Castillo has battled with anxiety, which sparked a fear of flying. So he sought the help of Adelaide hypnotherapist Clive Westwood.
I was a bit iffy-diffy about it because, you know, I thought, you know, he could make me run around the house like a loose chicken.
Are your eyes closed? What a lot of people don't realise about hypnotherapy is they think it's all about, hey, do something like a chicken or a dog or something like that, where really it's all about empowering your own self.
Clive, a self-trained hypnotherapist, says he begins by coaxing his clients into a relaxed state.
And that's really what it's about. It's about getting into that relaxed state so that you can achieve the suggestion and the power to overcome the phobia itself. Does that make sense? I hope it does, because I'm serious. If anybody out there suffers from any of these phobias, then please find yourself an anxiety and depression specialist. Just a few more. How about amophalophobia? Amophalophobia, fear of belly buttons. It's a real thing. People are very afraid of belly buttons. Now, I don't have a fear of belly buttons, unless it's an Audi, perhaps. If you have that fear of pedophilia, pediophobia. Pedophilia is a whole different topic, folks. I'm sorry, I told you my tongue gets tied reading this list, and when I post it, you'll see why. It's nuts. It's not what you think it is. Pedophobia is the fear of dolls. How about peliodophobia, which is the fear of bald people? Perhaps you're suffering from phagophobia, the fear of being eaten. My gosh, it goes on and on. Polematobia, the fear of kissing. Philosophia, the fear of philosophy. Prophylophobia, fear of the color purple. My gosh, folks, I just don't know. Not 3 pages, 4 pages. We're going to have to recap this one and do it all over again. That's for sure.
Give yourselves a round of applause for being smart enough to be here on a Friday, the spooky 13th. If any of those phobias rang true for you tonight, then perhaps you need to find the solution before the solution finds you. It's been a lot of fun hanging out with you. We're here again tomorrow and Sunday night starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Tomorrow night we're going to dive into the rabbit hole of mind reading with perhaps some online experiments testing the ability of ESP through this broadcast live. That's tomorrow night December 14th, Saturday, starting at 7 p.m., 10/9 Central. Then we're here again Sunday night to wrap up the weekend with our special Hidden Earth episode dealing with lost effigy mounds of North America. It's going to be an interesting program. That, again, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. And we're here every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday evening. So if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your family's friends. We're here and we're live. From me to you, I'm your host, AJ, the Rippin' Rabbit. Wherever you are, take care of yourself and each other. Good night.
Under a big head, 'cause he wants to be a cosmic role. You try to talk to him, you see him disappear. Oh, they call him Mr. Rabbit. Oh, simply Mr. Rabbit. You've never seen such a creature like this. A human body and a rabbit face. Oh, they call him Mr. Rabbit. Oh, Mr. Rabbit.
Once there was an old man living in an old house down by the lake. Rumor says the man was hunting for rabbits just for fun. Since the day the rabbit disappeared for a while, then came back and cast a spell over the old man. So he looks like a rabbit too now.
They call him Mr. Rabbit. Oh, simply Mr. Rabbit. You've never seen such a creature like this. A human body and a rabbit face. Oh, they call him Mr. Rabbit. Oh, Mr. Rabbit. Mr. Rabbit. They call him Mr. Rabbit.
You are listening to Rippin' Common Sense Radio.
That's right, where we take you well into the midnight hour with our special Art Bell Archives show happening tonight and every night this weekend, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Tune in as we open up the Art Bell Archives and dive into the lost classics of a vocal treasure. We take a look at those stories and we bring them up to date and we share them with you. We ask for your input and your shout-outs, your call-ins, as we go through the most amazing stories ever told. Tune in tonight and every night as we reinvestigate